Hello, welcome to Settled on the Field. Our little sports podcast here is going to dive into a little bit of everything, and we're going to try to set you up for success. So welcome to our crew. Jeb, how are you doing?
All is well in South Bend. Liz, you ready to go?
I'm ready. Never been more ready in my life.
That's saying something. All right, well, on this episode, we welcome Brenda Hilton, founder and CEO of Officially Human, and the Senior Director of Officiating Big Ten Conference, and the star of the Behind the Stripes podcast. In 2019, she founded Officially Human as a grassroots effort to humanize sports officials, and we all appreciate that. So welcome to the podcast, Settled on the Field, Brenda.
Thanks, you guys, for having me, and I applaud you for what you're trying to do. I say it all the time. One entity is not going to fix this crisis that everybody's in. Anybody that tries to help should be applauded. So thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining
us.
Yeah. Could you tell us a little bit about like how you went from Big Ten Director of Officiating to deciding to start Officially Human?
Sure. So started in college athletics in 2000. And honestly, I didn't know anything about the conference office. I didn't really know anything about officiating. Our son played Park District ball and school ball, but didn't really know anything. And sitting on a school board and the commissioner at the Mid-Continent Conference at the time. We were finishing a school board meeting, and I said, I'm thinking about getting a job. And he popped up and said, "Do you want a job?" And I said, "Well, I don't know, And so I went and talked to him and started 2 hours a day, 2 days a week in 2000, and got to know, I was the office manager at their office and worked with all the sport coordinators and really became fascinated with the space and why did these people do this and how did they get recruited to officiate and how does the assigning process work. I was just very intrigued with it. Really learned a lot about soccer, baseball, softball, volleyball. And in 2011, the Big Ten, the Mid-America Conference, and the Summit League, they were forming a consortium for men's basketball. And the Big Ten called me and asked me if I would come to the Big Ten and work there and kind of head anything off the court operations with that consortium. So I did that until 2018. And I was overseeing our building at the Big Ten at the time and doing basketball. Basketball decided to take on 3 more conferences, and that was a lot of games to try to make sure we didn't have any misses in the assigning process. So stepped away from that. And then in 21, they asked me to go back, and I went into football and didn't know anything about football. Mm-hmm. So talk about being thrown to the fire when you're with the Mid-America Conference, the Big Ten, and the Missouri Valley Conference. So did that. And actually my title just changed a few months ago to Senior Director of Administration. And so I'm not really in the officiating space. Day to day, I help out behind the scenes. But in 2018, when I was going to step away from men's basketball, I had enough people reach out to me and say, "What are you doing? Like, why are you," especially officials, like, "Why you understand the space, you understand what they go through, you like them. Not very many people like them." And so I spent a lot of 2018 just kind of talking to people, and I knew there was a shortage. I knew the treatment was really bad. I knew there was a retention problem, and I could find people doing stuff in the recruiting and some people trying to do stuff in the retention space, but there was really nobody in the treatment space. And just sat down on a Saturday morning and wrote a business plan and showed it to my husband. And he said, "Well, that needs some work." But within a week, within a week, we had a logo, we had a website. So we knew that he knew that I was on to something. And then just spent all of 2019 talking to people, what is really going on in the space. And next thing you know, people are connecting me with people all over the country and all over the world. And we still didn't really know what we were going to do, how we were going to monetize this, how are we going to raise awareness. And then COVID hit. And so we took that time to write a course called Elevate Respect. And that's a 20-minute course that we share with our partners that coaches, parents, fans, administrators can go through, and at a certain level, players can go through it. And it just really takes them behind the scenes of what officials are, who they are as people, why we need to treat them kindly. So that's a very long-winded answer to tell you how Officially Human came to be.
Oh,
So can I ask, I'm very curious, through all of your research, what did you find was the reason that people decide to become officials or stay officials? What was some of the reasons that people were sticking with it, even though, maybe there's a lot of pressure on them or a lot of people, as we know, are rude to them, things like that. What did you hear from them?
Sure. So one of the things that people don't really see in officiating is if we can get them to year 3 or 4, the retention rate is much higher. We have to get them out of youth and the youth space especially. If you can survive the 2 or 3 years that you spend at the youth level, you're going to elevate and you're going to make more money and you're going to have more control of your schedule. You're going to have a lot of other benefits to it. 70 to 80% of officials quit in the first 2 to 3 years. And when I'm talking to groups around the country, that's what I tell them, that summer is recruiting season for officials. And for every 100 officials that your organization takes on this summer, in 2 to 3 years, you're only going to have 20 to 30 left. And you've spent a ton of resources on that. And you're just spinning your wheels.
That's interesting because I have to say, through some of the people that we've spoke with, and I want to say this in a kind way, it seems as if they don't necessarily think there's an issue. Like they're like, we've got hundreds of officials in our system, but yet there still is a problem that's like brewing, it feels like. And so do you see that at all, that people are maybe kind of in denial as to what might be coming?
So I don't know that it's denial as much as I think it's regional. It depends on where you are. In Chicagoland, in the western suburbs, there's not a huge problem. Now, there's a problem at the high school level in sports like soccer and baseball and softball. But if you aren't entrenched in that and you haven't had a game canceled, you don't necessarily, there's no problem. None of my games have been canceled. And, if you're a basketball referee, a lot of times, your child's playing basketball or football. A lot of times you don't see those cancellations. You'll see games move to different days, but you don't see those cancellations because those sports are more popular.
Sure, that makes sense.
And I think also it depends on the training that is available. So if the YMCA in Lombard, Illinois is really, really good at finding mentors for their officials and they can retain them and they expect their fans to treat them with respect, no, they're not going to see those. But I don't know how to say this kindly, but if guests say there's no problem, then their head is buried in the sand because there's a problem.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't know if we've heard it from a guest on the podcast, but we've heard it dealing with some people that are running the officials in places. So, yeah, I guess we'll just move on from that. I know I've heard you say you don't have a game without the officials, which, that makes perfect sense. The third team on the field. Can you touch on just like your experience lately with that importance of recognizing the human side?
Yes, I can touch on that. The one thing that I really enjoy about this work, I'm not getting rich off of it. So, just in case anybody was wondering, but it's so fulfilling to talk to people and say, oh yeah, I've seen your stuff online. I've seen your PSAs. I've had people reach out to me because now we have 29 college conferences as partners and they get to show our PSAs at, on their web streams or in venue. If they have a broadcast that they need a filler, they can use those. I've had people reach out to me and say, hey, I go to an RMAC school and I've seen your commercial. What do you do now? How can I help? So many people have reached out and said, how can I help spread the word on this? So that's the fulfilling part of it. That's the really fun part. People in Australia, we've talked to people in Australia about this. It's crazy. The name, the mission is getting a lot more attention now.
Great.
And by the way, it's been 5 years.
So Brenda, one of the things I remember hearing you talk about on your podcast was bringing out the human side of the official, obviously officially human. but I'm an administrator locally here with some junior high Catholic League sports. And I really like the idea you had of the officials coming out before the game and introducing themselves and, letting the fans know, hey, Jeb, I sell flooring, I have a podcast, and, I'm also tri-founder of Vets to Refs. So if anybody out there is a veteran or first responder, come join me. We'd love to have you officiate. But if I were to say that before a game, I think it would go a lot farther to my credibility and just the respect that everybody said, has for the officials at the game. So I heard you say that on the podcast, and I am working on implementing that. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I love it. And I'll throw another idea at you that has kind of started to get some legs with some of our college partners. If you have somebody that will donate $500 to you and you can have t-shirts made that say honorary official, and you hand those out to kids in the crowd, and then you have them take a picture with the official, that kid is going to go back into the stands with that shirt on, and he or she is going to know the official's name, know what they do, and mom and dad all of a sudden are like, it's my, that's such and such's dentist. Oh, yeah. Any way you can find to humanize them, I think it drives home the point, and we talk about this a lot too. Everybody takes in information differently. So if there's a sign or there's an honorary official or people are introducing, what their day job is, anything we can do to get something to stick with somebody in the crowd. And we all know that 95 to 96% of the fans are really good.
Yeah.
We're trying to empower that 95 to 96 so their voice is louder than that 4 to 5%.
That's a great idea. I love the t-shirt idea or anything to get them to introduce to the officials. And that kind of leads into my next question. So like as a school or a coaching staff, what are some ideas you might have for the coach to teach his players? In the beginning of the season, the coach always meets with all the parents. Hey, let me talk to the officials, be nice. They don't hear that. But what are some ideas that you guys might have for a team to work their way to be a better host for the officials coming to their gym or their field?
I would say there's a few things you could do. First, whoever the administrator is and who the coach is and even the players before the game, they introduce themselves and they say their name. You have the athlete look at the official. You got to say your name. You got to thank them. That will have a little more, that's a human connection, right? So yeah. We now have to look that person in the eye. The other thing is make sure those officials are appreciated. And if it's having players go up, I don't know the right time before a game and say, hey, do you need a water? I'll make sure our manager gets you a water or something. Any interaction that these athletes can have with these officials and even the coaches, the more interactions we have with them in a normal, calm setting, the more they're going to think about what they say and how they treat them.
I think that's such a good point because I guess from a fan perspective, I'm not sure that I knew that they were allowed to necessarily speak with the official. Is there any kind of weird rule that's like, well, we shouldn't be talking to the officials because we don't want to be perceived as, they're now the homer ref or something like that. Are there any rules around it?
Sometimes they do say only the captain should be speaking to the officials or something to that effect, but that's during the game, right?
Yeah, and you're at the junior high level, right?
Well, yeah, but I officiate all levels, so
yeah. And I think honestly, you can look at any college game or any pro game, and those it doesn't matter what you do, you're going to get accused of being a homer as an official. So you really can't win with that. And I just firmly believe that the more interaction we can have with them, the more we can humanize them. And I think one of the things that you can do kind of preseason and then throughout the season is get a hold of a couple of our PSAs, have your school send them out to the parents and say, hey, we're heading into the season. Please watch this 30-second video about humanizing sport officials because we are in a crisis, situation where we don't have enough. And send it again 3 weeks later, send it again before midterm, sporadically send it. And then 90% of the people will watch it. Yeah. Okay. You'll see at kind of the Division I level, there's not nearly the shortage, but this is the thing that I talk about a lot. When you're talking about the officiating shortage, and we know there's not a shortage at the Division I level. However, there is a shortage at the Division II and Division III level. And if you have a really bad shortage in the Southeast for baseball, I'm just throwing this out there for baseball, and that's a warm climate, everybody's playing baseball or softball, and all of a sudden you do this huge recruiting thing and you bring these people in, and we start to move them up the ladder faster when they're not ready. That's almost more dangerous than being really short.
Absolutely.
Because you're setting those officials up for failure.
Right. We need a pipeline. There needs to be a pipeline at all times, right? And this is, I think, what we were talking about earlier, that people may be not foreseeing, I guess.
Yeah, because if you're in your own bubble, and not to be mean, but if you're in your own bubble and you're running 5 kids, to different sports every day, and you're just getting them there and you're getting them home, you're right. That's what happens. You're not really paying attention.
Yep. So I've got 5 kids. That's why I'm pointing at myself. But we also have tried to establish that pathway. We've mentioned Vets to Refs. Vets to Refs is a 501c3 nonprofit we founded to support veterans and first responders to become sports officials. We're coming up on 1 year.
So over time, the awareness will be bigger and brighter on these campuses. One of the things that happened with one of our summer partnerships that we signed was their SAC, their Student Athlete Advisory Commission, reached out to me on LinkedIn and said, "Hey, I'd like our committee to partner with you." And that's the first of its kind. So they're doing all kinds of initiatives at their games. They're starting during conference play of basketball. And I mean, that's the way this happens, is the grassroots effort, people really paying attention to what we're doing. And those athletes, they're your future veterans. They're your future, first responders. Those are great people to become officials, but we got to humanize them first.
I think it's a wonderful idea you got going, and I'm super excited to see these media,
PSAs.
Thank you.
Yeah.
To have the PSAs out there so that we can, spread the wealth on that. And it's just a wonderful idea. And I want to implement as much of this as we can locally here to just keep growing, our officials, but also the support of the officials. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah. The biggest thing is just the increased communication with people. 4 of our conference partners have printed stickers that just say "Thank you, officials" with our logo on it. You can do that. It's a really simple thing to do. A big rivalry game.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah.
I'm full of ideas.
Yes, you are full of ideas. Well, we loved having you on. I don't know if we do have one more question that we definitely are going to ask, but we also want to say, if we can ever partner up in any way, aside from the podcast, maybe a sticker, maybe we can get some stickers going for our next event, but I think that we would love to help in any way we can.
Well, I'll tell you what, the city of Indianapolis they're just great partners.
We've been putting on some good events here in Indy, and it's growing, and the events are growing, and we went to the Combine last year. That was a really fun football event.
Yeah.
And they've had that every year as long as I can remember. So
they'll be in Fishers on December 7th for the Indy Fuels second game in their new stadium.
How is that stadium?
Appreciation night.
It's going to be my first night going to that stadium.
Haven't been yet.
Have you been yet? So we're doing a veteran reach out for Vets to Refs. So come see us at the Fuel game, and then we'll let you know how the stadium is.
Yes, let me know. What about, does anybody go to the Horizon League tournament?
Didn't we? The basketball tournament?
Yeah, I've been, but it was a couple years ago. I haven't been in the past couple of years.
Did you
Actually-
come to the officially human activation at the Horizon League tournament? There's no pressure. There's no right or wrong answer here.
Did I
Nice.
or would I? Send me some
Well-
details.
Oh, very nice.
Okay, so we ask all our guests, if you had any sporting event that you could attend live, what would it be?
Well, is it fair to say that I've already attended it?
It is.
Or what's the best one you've ever been
Favorite
to?
or
Either
bucket
way.
list or something like that.
I would say in 2014, we took our entire family to the Rose Bowl, and it was the 100th anniversary.
Oh, wow.
And there's nothing like it.
Wow.
There's
That is a
nothing
bucket
like
list
it.
item for me.
That's a great
Did
answer.
you go to the parade?
We did it all.
I want to go to the parade more than anything. That looks amazing.
It's one of those things you probably, unless you just really, really love going to that over and over again. We did it once. I don't know that I need to do it again, but we had some friends that had a house up on top of the hill that overlooked the Rose Bowl. So we went there after the game, and you're just looking. This was stunning. It was stunning.
Gorgeous.
The whole pomp and circumstance of it was amazing.
Very nice.
So
I don't know what movie it is, but there's a good quote that says, "There's a house on the hill in Pasadena."
yeah, I was probably there.
That was the one.
Yeah. And then
Good one.
I'm fortunate enough that I volunteer at the Final Four every year. The NCAA puts on a next generation of officiating program, and I run that for them. So
Nice.
I get to go to the Final Four, and yeah, it's a terrible gig I got going here.
Yeah.
That's rough.
Yes. Sounds rough.
Maybe we'll,
Now, is the Final Four in Indy this year? Or maybe that's next year?
Next year.
Soon.
Yeah.
Next,
Next
year.
year.
Okay.
Yes. So
Great.
I'll be there
We'll
then.
see you then. We'll see
yes.
you then.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you
Thank-
so much for
Well,
joining
thanks,
us.
you guys, for
joining us,
having me. And,
Brenda.
well, keep doing the great work you're doing. And if I
Yeah.
can help you, let me know.
All right.
Keep dominating. Bye.